The obsession with productivity and efficiency takes away from actual encounter and actual relationship. In our society, that's a big struggle. There's also the opposite struggle of, it's like there's no in between. We don't know how to actually rest. We're either ultra productive or
lazy.
We are lazy, yeah.
90% of the time, you need to be responsible. You need to work. You need to work the field. You need to work the oxen. You need to work for your wife. But we should all be anticipating the rest. We should all be saying, I need to work now, but one day, as soon as Jesus says, I will not work anymore.
It's learning to just set down my work and be present to the person who's in front of me, who needs me, who whatever is like, there's a rest in that too. Even in giving of ourselves, there can be this rest.
I cannot save myself. I cannot rise myself from life. I cannot enter heaven myself. None of these are things I can do myself. I need to receive like at a banquet.
I feel the Lord defending not just our vocation, but like he defends our peace. He defends our joy. And it's like these things cannot be taken from us.
Glory to Jesus Christ. It's Jelly. I am here to welcome you to the What God Is Not podcast, where you could join Father Michael O'Loughlin and my godmother, Mother Natalia.
Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory to him forever.
We have gotten out of the habit of checking our volume before we hit record, but I think we're good.
I checked my volume.
I have gotten out of the habit of checking the volume before I record. Actually, you know what's funny is that today is one of the days I actually did look at my Zoom because I was having trouble with my computer, and so the Zoom is our recorder. And I did, while the computer was restarting, I was just talking to the microphone and seeing the volume. So I guess I just lied for both of us. So
I forgive you.
So.
Can I steal a moment of your banter to share a reflection?
It's not
I
my
had on
banter,
Scripture?
Mother. It's our banter. So yes.
Great. This reflection is going to make people angry, some people, but I'm going to say it anyways. It's not going to make you angry. You're going to laugh. I'm thinking about, anyways, yeah. When we read the resurrection gospel at Matins this past weekend, I think that's when it was. Anyways, it was talking about how the women couldn't find Jesus's body at the tomb. And I was like, I just had this thought, no wonder Jesus had the women go. Because if the men went and couldn't find his body and came back and told the women, they'd be like, yeah, you never find anything when you're looking for it. And they wouldn't, then they'd have to just go check themselves, which I guess is what happened with the women and the men. But anyways,
Did your mom do what my mom did? Because with boys, it's even worse. Is it that, or something like this, and I'm asking our listeners as well. My mother would literally, this is so wise. We'd go and we'd say, I can't find it. And she'd say, if I find it, you owe me $1. And that, like, we'd go right back again. And there it is, where we're looking with renewed zeal. Kind of, my bad, it was right there, but I didn't have the desire or the ambition or whatever it was to find this thing, and I was probably just being lazy, and my mom knew that. So, and it was true. I think it only happened once where she went in there and there it was and charged $1, but like never again. I was like, all right, I'm.
I don't remember my mom doing, like, I don't remember particularities, but I have a vague memory of, I think she did things like that with all of us, not just with the boys, but because kids in general. But yeah, boys particularly bad at that, I think.
It's really funny being a pastor of a small parish, because I absolutely do use and if Pauline Meert is listening to this, I'm probably not doing it correctly according to Catechesis of the Good Shepherd, but I absolutely do use my parents' discipline styles within the context of a parish with children. So like yesterday, we have one little boy, I won't mention any names, that he's hilarious. He decided that he wants to get to church early because he wants to serve at the altar. I think he's probably like 7 years old. Right, he wants to serve at the altar. He just loves this. He's the one I may have mentioned before that after the very first Divine Liturgy he served at, the very first one, he comes up to me and he says, Father Michael, this job up here is so good and responsible, but so hard that I think we should be first in line for food, like for the potluck. Like I think. And I was like, no, you can, the last shall be first, the first shall be last. I said, you can wait like everybody else. And then I literally walked.
And in fact, you should be serving.
Right, exactly. And I walk into the sacristy and there he is talking to Father Adrian, the Romanian Catholic priest whose community meets after ours in the same church. And he's explaining to him why he thinks that those who serve should be, should be the first in line to receive the food for the potluck. Anyway, so yesterday, this kid was, so my parishioners who know who this is, but this kid was just the whole time, he's like chatting with the older server and like just not looking the right direction and, just chatting. So finally I had to kind of pull him aside and I said, you have really good questions, I'm sure. And I like all the questions you ask. But the time to ask those questions is after the liturgy. I said, during the liturgy, you're supposed to be paying attention, facing forward, being still, all these things. Okay, Father. And then at the end, both of the adult servers come over and go, I don't know if he's ready to serve at the altar. He's just he can't pay attention. He's asking too many questions. And he didn't, I don't know if he's ready. And I said, is it because he can't sit still and he's asking you questions? Because in my mind, like that can be remedied. Like a child his age can be learned. But they said, no, he fights with his brother over what to carry. And they both push us every single time where we say you're going to carry a candle. And they're like, no, I want to carry the rapidia. Like I want to carry the fan with the angels on it. And they're like, nope, you need, anyway, they push back a lot, both he and his older brother.
Okay.
And I was like, well, that may be that's a conversation I'll have with them. Maybe with mom and dad there. But also it's that's a thing to say, if you guys maybe need to be a little bit older before you serve at the altar, because you need to listen. It's actually more doable to listen than it is to stand still up there. I know, but I don't mind the not standing still, a bit. So anyway.
Yeah.
But it is kind of cool using those things that most, probably when you're discerning celibacy, you don't think you'll actually use those gifts, the things your parents did. But if you're managing a bunch of kids on the altar, then
I'm sure you have great questions.
Yeah.
I love the questions that you ask. I like that.
Affirm them first. I really do think, that works with adults too. It annoys.
I've realized I really try to use some of the things that I learned even when I was a teacher of just like kids do better when they're given a choice as opposed to this is, like when we have little kids join us for dinner, we have a set of the like kids plates, and it's like 4 different colors or whatever. So I realized that the kids would often not want to use those plates because they want to use the grown-up plates, right? And so what I started doing, and so far this has worked every single time, what I started doing is when the kids come, I pull out the plates and I say, do you want the blue plate or the yellow plate? And like, since they get to choose which of the plates they have, that's easier than just like, they've not yet responded with neither. I want the grown-up plate. And so
that's brilliant. I had and this may lead into my topic, so maybe we can count the bouncer now, but I had
great.
I had a really deep thought last night about parish, like running a parish or running an organization. This works equally well for a monastery, and it is very, very important for families. That's why I think this is an important thing. But it was only a simple thought. I need to develop it a lot more, but I'll just say it here, and you can speak into this, Mother. But I last night, I maybe like 3 days ago, I went and bought my Christmas tree, and
from the dollar store?
I've never done this before, and I just bought a literally dollar store Christmas tree. And the dollar store, it's like Dollar Tree. They have a Christmas tree for $1.50. They have bulbs for $1.50. They have lights for $1.50. They have the little skirt that goes around the bottom for $1.50. So you literally, then I thought, I don't know where the dollar store Christmas tree, I mean, is that in a song or something? I don't know where that term is, dollar store Christmas tree, but it's true. Like the dollar store has all these things. It's a little plastic Christmas tree, and it has everything, every little piece of the U.S. So I literally, last night I slept with the lights on the tree. So as I'm putting this together, I got in last night too late, but I had to do my laundry. I had put my sheets in the washer, needed to put them in the dryer. So
oh shoot, I meant to start laundry before this.
oh, so did I actually. Dang it! All my
All right, let's pause recording while we both go start our laundry.
all my skivvies were put in the laundry last night, and then I forgot to move them over to the dryer. So anyway,
bummer. No,
I know they may be they may need another wash. We'll see. But anyway, so as I'm waiting for my sheets to dry, I decided to set up the Christmas tree. And so I put on Sarah Kroger, I saw on Instagram, who's a friend of mine from Denver, and she sings with Matt Maher now, and she put out like an Advent Christmas album. So I put that on, I listened to the whole thing, it was brilliant. And then I said, I'm going to put on like one of the Christmas albums that I grew up with. So I put on like Spotify, you can do it, whatever you want, right? So I pull up Spotify and I listen to Roger Whittaker Christmas, which is what we had, literally a record when I was a kid. I didn't realize like Roger, I think he wrote the entire Christmas album. They're not typical Christmas things, but it is for my family because that's what I grew up with. So I'm listening to all these things, Darcy the Dragon, all these other songs that I grew up with, and I'm going, this, I think it's from like the 80s, and I'm like, this is so, maybe even the 70s. The background music is so 70s or 80s. Like it really is. There's a couple of things I realized. But anyway, what this did is it put me in a very, very nostalgic mood, like Christmas always does for us, of course. It put me in a very nostalgic mood. Now, again, I just realized as I'm saying this, some of you are going to judge me for listening to Christmas music during Advent. That's why I love that Sarah Kroger's album does say it's called Advent, which I think is a very important thing to do, and to have different listening habits. But
Andrew Peterson has Advent music that's really
exactly. And so like Advent music is great. And yes, I listen to Christmas music during Advent. I'm one of those guys. I'm going to say it unapologetically. I do not recommend everybody do this. People holier than me will wait till Christmas, and then we'll do the 12 days or 40 days or whatever they do.
I think there is like, I'm going to let you keep going eventually, but I do think that there's something to be said for like, I don't want Christmas music in general during the Nativity Fast, like while I'm doing my grocery shopping or as the background music when I'm doing office work or something like that. But I enjoy listening to Christmas music while I'm wrapping up my Christmas presents or while I'm working on Christmas gifts or while I'm like doing something Christmassy. Yeah. And I do think that's different.
I was heartened. I can't find the book. I think it's called...
Guess what? Liturgically, we do this.
Yes.
Because we're singing the Caravassia for Christmas.
Yes.
At Matins.
So this is the thing. I think there's something inherent in the Phillips fast. I'll need to ask people more. Byzantine is smarter than me. I can't find the book. Anyway, there's a book that came out from Ancient Faith Publishing this year, and I think it has a little devotional reflection for every day of the Phillips fast and up till Theophany. And it's either starts with Behold or Rejoice. I forget the name of it. But anyway, the very
Rejoice is the one that Father Jack Custer did.
Okay, this is like a phrase. Rejoice, So or I just forget. That's the way my brain works. I remember like the first word. But anyway, and it starts out by saying that in the Phillips fast, you do have a daily. You foreshadow the coming of the Nativity of our Lord by living it out, and I think that is different than the Great Fast. I don't think, although it annoys me that on Jerusalem Matins for Great and Holy Saturday that we sing the myrrh-bearing women hymn like he's already risen, and yet we're still waiting. That always annoys me every year. But I think we're basically saying every Matins is a celebration of the resurrection, even if it's Holy Saturday, So that's what that is. But it's still as an American, it annoys me. Anyway, but he did say in that first day reflection, you're going to see that every day of preparation is also a participation. So I think that's why I'm not ashamed to be listening.
That's really
to
interesting.
Christmas
I've not thought about that before. That does feel like a difference to me. Like, I don't even like, we have to, as a community, we sometimes have to practice some of the Paschal music during the Great Fast. We at least try to do it before Holy Week so that we don't have to sing it during Holy Week.
Yeah.
But we sometimes have to practice, like the choral pieces. It's like, we need to practice this before we sing it, and we're singing it on Pascha. And so, and I don't even like that. Interiorly, I don't like it. I do agree that we have to do it, and it makes sense and all of that. But something in me like cringes when we do that. And I don't feel the same way about like singing the Caravassia for the Nativity. That just gets me excited for Christmas. And so I think you're right. I've never noticed that even interiorly I feel differently about the preparation for Pascha versus the preparation for Christmas in that. And I wonder, that's really interesting. But with Pascha, we do have during the Great Fast, like right before the Great Fast, entering into the fast, we have Forgiveness Vespers.
I was going there.
Which starts,
No, please.
It starts with the Paschal canon. Yeah. And so we do have the end in sight from the beginning. Yeah. I think we just enter more into the desert and more into the darkness in the Great Fast than we do with, it's like, all right, here's a glimpse of the end. Now you're sent into the desert. Whereas with Nativity, it's like we have these glimpses throughout it.
And I think that there is a need for that even in the Great Fast, because fasting for its own sake is evil, right? You need to be fasting for the sake of something that fasting leads to, that fasting is helpful for. So you do kind of need to have. That's like a gunshot. We've had a lot of crazy things.
Oh, I can't hear it.
Rob Reiner just got killed last night by his son. His son killed both his mom and his dad. Anyway,
that's
in
very
Brentwood,
terrible.
which
I don't know who that
over
is.
the hills.
It's terrible that a man died.
He directed a lot of movies, like from the 80s, 90s. Yeah, I mean, he was a director. When Harry Met Sally, and I just saw this today, but there was a bunch of other ones he directed, and I apologize, I'm not Hollywood enough to know. But anyway, we had a shooting just down the street a couple nights ago. Anyway, it's people always say, is it really as bad in LA as I hear? I'm like, no, it's not. It's really not. It's not as bad as you hear, but some days it may be. Obviously, the Rob Reiner thing was an isolated incident. But so yes, I think that there's
we need that. We need it in Lent
during the Great Fast for Pascha. But I'm wondering if maybe one of the things that you could do whenever, just for your very Mother Natalia mindset, when you're practicing, especially the choral parts for Pascha during the Great Fast, you could actually incorporate like a forgiveness ritual. Like right before you practice, to say we want to associate, if we're in the Great Fast, we're going to associate the Paschal hymns with forgiveness, because that's our tradition even if it's just you guys do such a good job with the greeting, forgive me a sinner, God forgives, forgive me. Or whatever you say. So like that, there is that you could incorporate that so that you're kind of taking the extension of Forgiveness Vespers into the Great Fast if you need to be practicing. Anyway, those are the two things. So I'm trying to think of the example I was going to use. I was listening to Roger Whittaker Christmas. It's a lot of it is like classical music, but some of it is kind of like, this is from the 80s, 70s or 80s. But I thought, I remember, I know what it was. They also...
Do you know when this episode's even coming out?
I can look it up.
It's fine if you don't. I guess I'm just curious.
I can... Our team has been
we're recording good. So far ahead right now, I think.
It gets published on...
We're taking a few weeks off.
January 21st.
Okay, great. So it is absolutely okay for people to listen to Christmas music when this comes out, no matter your views on the
Unless
things.
you're listening to this at a time before it comes out, or after it comes out by a year or 2 or 3.
Yes, that's true. So
yes, listen to Christmas music. But when I was doing it, I just remembered what it was. I didn't only spend $1.50 on those things I mentioned. I also spent $1.50 on the hooks that you can hook the bulbs on, because the bulbs come with a little piece of string, but I grew up with it. You put the string on there, then you put the hook through the string and hook it on. So I was thinking, as I'm like hanging these
this is just adorable.
mini bulbs on my dollar store Christmas tree, And I also literally started hanging the bulbs. I was like, oh, no, wait, the lights go on first, because that's what we did as kids. You put up the tree, then you put the lights on, then you put the ornaments on. So I stopped putting ornaments on. I take them off and I put the lights on. It's literally this little tiny dollar string of tiny LEDs, $1.50 in this day and age, of a string of little LEDs that go around. There's like maybe 7 of them for the whole tree, right? This tiny little tree. It's literally like
you need to take a picture with the tree for the graphic for this podcast.
It's my little sad little tree, which I love.
It's wonderful.
So by this time, also my family's going to realize that I'm going to surprise them on Christmas Day. So this is like, especially if I'm going to see my family, then I'm not going to. My parents' Christmas tree is my Christmas tree. That's why this is kind of a little. Yeah. This isn't my Christmas tree, but there is a little melancholic something or other that I can feel in my little 3 states away from my family, my little Christmas tree in my house. So anyway, so I'm doing this, and I think you have to put the lights on first. You have to put the hooks through the string to hang up the ornaments. And I like this actually was canon when I was 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 years old, right? This was, you had to do this. This was the way you did it. And now if you would ask me, does every family do it this way? I probably would have said, I don't know. But this is how my family does it, and this is how we must do it. So as I'm thinking through this, I'm thinking how much I have changed in my own leadership of this family that is the parish, because somebody will say, can I do this thing, Father? And I will go, yes, it doesn't matter. Right? Do you want to wear shoes in liturgy? Go ahead. If you don't want to wear shoes, go. If you don't want to wear shoes, go ahead. If you want to do this thing, go ahead. If you want to do this, and if this is helpful to you, then do it. I'm not that we don't need that. These specific things don't matter, and that is true. Certain things don't matter, but one thing I think I'm going to pray about doing a little more intentionally is actually saying, this is how we do it in our parish. Because I think people, it does get distracting when there's all these options. And even adults, they want, this is the way we do it here. And as long as they know, you may go to a different parish, you may visit a different parish, and they're going to do things differently. And that's okay. But here's how we do it here, so that we have this one mindset. And I think even adults are like children in that. First you hang the lights, then the ornaments. Like there's something important to that means being part of a family and learning traditions. And the biggest thing with this, so Bishop Arthur, if you're listening, the biggest thing for this,
I would be very surprised if he's ever listened to our podcast.
Well, he listened to the live one we did when he was there.
That's true. He has technically listened to one of our
he used to listen, before he was a bishop, he used to listen to podcasts. I don't think he has the time now, but maybe when he travels, he can be listening to podcasts. But anyway, if you're listening.
Why was I thinking of him the other day? Oh, I was praying with the icon that he gave me for my life profession. Sorry, keep going.
So if I really do think, and I'll probably just talk to him this year about it, during the Great Fast, I get frustrated and I'm mad at myself, but I may come across, I apologize to any parishioners who I've done this with, I come across as being mad at the person who asked, but that's of course not the case. I'm just mad at myself, and so it's coming out. But someone will say to me, Father, can I have a dispensation to eat meat on this Thursday? And I go, I can't give you a dispensation because you're not required.
Because it's not a rule.
Right, it's not a rule. And they're like, what? And I'm like, it's hard for me to explain to you that the only rule is no meat on Wednesdays and Fridays. So on a Thursday, if you don't want to eat meat, don't eat meat. If you want to eat meat, eat meat. Like it depends on what rule you're following. But as your spiritual director, right? So this is I read your mind, right?
That's what I was going to say.
As your spiritual director, this is what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to say, we're going to write down. I've actually seen churches do this, and there was a brilliant one like 2 years ago. Whatever parish did this, whatever priest did this, I'm going to copy this. It's brilliant. They had 2 columns. And it said, here's what the church requires. Here's what the bishops say to do. Here's what the ancient tradition is. And then you literally have an empty column in the middle where you write in what you are going to do. So it's like, on Mondays this, Tuesdays
Like for
this,
each
Wednesdays
person.
this, and every person does it. So they actually write down, and it's usually it's between those two things. Or you just circle the big one, or you circle the small one. It's like on Mondays I'm going to do this, Tuesdays this, Wednesdays this, and then you can even say like on this feast day, when there's a mitigation from wine and oil. So on this feast day, even though it's on a Tuesday, you can have wine and oil on this day because of the feast, level of the feast. But you also can eat meat because the bishop hasn't said anything about this. So I love that idea, and I think I'm going to copy that and then say, as you're going to run this by, and then as you're in spiritual direction, we're going to decide this is what I'm doing. So I will need a dispensation if my mom is coming over. And if I this happens, this is a real story. Like my mom's coming over, and somebody shared this with me, and basically she likes meat and potatoes. And if I don't eat meat and potatoes, she's just going to mock me for my crazy Byzantine faith the whole time and mock me for my fasting. Father, can I just make her meat and potatoes? And if I don't eat them with her, it's going to be even more drama. And I go, yes, have meat and potatoes, right? Like, and you have my blessing to break what we discussed you would do. So there is, I think I need to adapt myself to have more structured rituals that people can rest in, because I think that's really what this is. Once you know what to do and how to do it, you rest from a certain anxiety of having to figure things out in the moment. I love that. I think that's probably part of my problem is I love figuring things out in the moment, but most people do not. And when I was a child, I didn't. And a child, like, this is the way we do it. So I think there's obviously wisdom needed, discernment needed for each of these different things when it comes to fasting or decorating the church or whatever we're doing, big and small traditions in the church, as long as the people know that because we do this thing here doesn't mean you're going to go to another church. Like not every church will the priest bless you on the head if you're not receiving the Eucharist. Not every church. So I need to tell my people, if you're traveling, you may just want to stay in the pew instead of getting a blessing with the Eucharist. If you see other people getting blessed with the Eucharist, then you go up, or at least wait where you are until you see someone getting blessed with the Eucharist. And then if that's the case, then go up and bow your head, type thing. So anyway, there's these different things. So I think that there's a certain healthy rest that people have, like a child does in how you put bulbs on the tree and how you do things like this. So I want to go into and how this relates to the gospel this past Sunday with the banquet that the rich man invited people to. But do you have any thoughts, aspirations?
Only that I like that you want, and this is something that I often appreciate about the things that you're sharing that you do with your parish, is I know that there's a desire not just to do the things in the parish, but to catechize the people about them. And I really appreciate that, because I think if you just start doing the things or having particular things within your parish, and then people do think, not just this is how our parish does it, but this is how it must be done. Yeah,
exactly.
Then I think that's because it's like, when you said that as a kid, this was like canon, right? This was canon to you. And had anyone asked you like, well, is this how other families do it? I was surprised by your answer, because I would have said, of course, this is how everyone does it. Like, this is how it's done. I think that's what I would have thought as a kid, because I remember those moments, some of them happening at sleepovers, some of them happening not until I'm in college, some of them happening not until I'm in the monastery, where I suddenly realized, oh, the way my family did things is not how every family does things. And some of that is like, wow, my family was very unhealthy in this way. Other times it's like, wow, my family was very healthy in this way. And, or just different things of, anyways, I have random thoughts there.
This is a big chunk of marriage prep. But like it's a big chunk of marriage prep. What are your expectations? Yeah. Because you'll get married, start living together, and then realize you should not, like, that's not how you do it. Right. And then you're like, no, you need to get most of that out before you get married so that your expectations are not dashed, or especially when you have kids, like what are the expectations around roles for raising children, roles for housework, roles for finances. You may just assume that every family does this. Like my mom reconciled the bank statements. That's what we did. I remember watching my mom with the checkbook and the bank statement from the bank, sitting at the kitchen table and making sure that the checkbook matched the bank statement, But that's what my mom did. If I had been married at, 24 years old, I probably would have just assumed that my wife is going to do the same thing, right? She's the one who will sit at the kitchen table, because that's where you sit when you do this, right? You get it in the mail, you sit at the kitchen table, you reconcile the checkbook. I would have just assumed that's the case, So marriage prep is this reality.
And I think assume is the right word there, because it's not, I don't say this to be critical of people, of like, I don't think we're not doing this intentionally.
Right.
We just form this totally subconscious thing of like, because this is how I've always experienced it, this is just what happens. This is just what
that's honestly where racism and prejudice comes from too, right? This has been my experience, and therefore this is the whole experience. This is everybody's experience. This is how it is. Yeah. Very dangerous.
But I even remember you and I talked about this recently in spiritual direction, but like I was diagnosed with a particular thing because my whole medical diagnosis, because my whole life I just thought like, oh, this is just normal. This is just everyone's experience. And then it was only like a couple years ago that I was talking to some people about this experience, and they were like, that is not normal. Yes. That's not how the human body works. And I was like, oh, and then I went to my doctor and they were like, yeah, that's not normal. That's a problem. And I was like, oh, so anyways, but it's just like, if this is, it's kind of like, actually, it's what we've talked about too with confession, of like, I really feel like priests have this great advantage in learning to go to confession themselves, because my only experience of confession is me going to confession. Yeah. So I have nothing to, like, you guys can tell you've had these experiences of, oh, wow, the way that person goes to confession, that's actually a really brilliant approach. And like, I want to do that in my own confession, but like, I don't have that as my only experience of confession is my confession.
I was just telling a spiritual daughter this morning that she asked me very beautifully, how do you, because we were talking about confession, and she says, I only go to confession when I have something big, like something I know I did wrong. She says, I don't know. I have trouble, like, because I said, what's one of the most beautiful confessions is when you go when you don't have a big thing in mind, because then you can spend some time finding the smaller things. She goes, what are the smaller things? Like, what are examples of the smaller things? So I gave a couple examples of my own. And then she gave an example of one of her own. And it was like, yeah, exactly. That's what it is. But then I said, how I've learned about that is from hearing confessions. I've learned because somebody said, I'm like, I should do that myself. Like, I should bring that into confession, my own confession.
This is one of the gifts of being a spiritual director for me, is like, in giving spiritual direction, I'm often like, I really think that you should pray with this, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, I want to pray with that.
Yeah, exactly. So we had this reading this past Sunday, just yesterday, of this man gives a banquet and he invites many. And they make these three excuses. One of the excuses the invited made was, I bought a field, I have to inspect it. Another, I bought a yoke of ox, I need to tend to them. And the other was, I got married, I can't come, and he gets mad. And then again, this is a very important thing that I preach all the time, but I really think it's important for our listeners. If you take one thing from this episode, when you hear a parable that Jesus tells, like, find the confusing thing. Find the thing that makes you stop and think. Find the thing that doesn't make sense, or that you say, no, there's something odd about that. And that's usually where you're going to begin to see the message of Jesus Christ in it. It makes you think. And again, that's not the only thing, and you're going to come to different conclusions over your entire lifetime. But you take that seriously. Like, allow a parable to confuse you, or to make you stop and think, or make you grapple with it, is really what it is. So one of the ways to grapple with this is that why would somebody get? Again, we get invited. We get mad. It's understandable somebody gets mad if you invite a bunch of people, they don't go to your party, right? That's obvious. You put it on yourself, I'm mad because they don't love me enough or consider me important enough in their life. And then usually that comes from my own shame and my own insecurities and, things like this. But anyway, this is a parable. It's not just talking about human insecurity that the invited made these excuses. There's something, a deeper reason why this person got angry. Now, there's other versions of this that talk about it being the wedding banquet of somebody's son, a wedding garment, all these things we've talked about. This one is very simple in Luke. It's very, very simple. It's just some guy invited a bunch of people. They all made excuses. So he sends his servants out twice to fill up the banquet hall because none of those invited are going to come. It seems like an overreaction. And I think this is one of the things to grapple with. But it also, to me, who loves parties, I need to be told you should not go because you should do this thing. And this thing you should, unless you tend to your newly purchased land, unless you tend to your oxen, unless you tend to your family at home, you should not go to the party. Until those things are done, you should not go. So that's the convicting part for me. So that's what confuses me now. There are some beautiful, I'm not going to go into them. There are some beautiful reflections from the fathers about what does it mean to have oxen? What does it mean to have a field? What does it mean to get married? And how do those specific things relate to putting those things over the banquet that you should have said yes to? But there's also just a very basic way of looking at it where you say, and I think this is literally just my own reflection, so you can ignore me completely if you want. But I think there is something about a banquet, and I mentioned this in my children's homily. What do we have after liturgy? And the kids say, we have a potluck. Right? What does a potluck mean? A potluck means everybody brings something. What do we do before the potluck? What do you do? We have a little girl, Rita. What do you do, Rita? She says, I wipe down the tables. Exactly. What do we do after another potluck? We clean up the trash. We put everything in the trash. We walk out of the dumpster. Right? That's not a banquet. That's a potluck. A banquet means you do nothing. So
you show up and you are served, and you're served good food,
yes.
And
the person who holding the banquet,
and you don't have to help clean up.
Exactly. I made up that definition of banquet, but I think it's fitting for this parable. Everything is set up for you when you arrive. Everything is cleaned up after you leave. The food, you do not bring anything. You do not pay anything. You are there to receive, and I think that's what all three of these things are assuming. These things are what things you work on. And yet the banquet, when you just receive, was neglected or ignored, or the parts of working on the field of the oxen of the marriage were emphasized over the receiving. And so this is the rest that God wants us to have. And this in its ultimate form, this rest is, of course, death. Grant, O Lord, eternal rest to your servant, that we pray. Blessed repose, eternal memory, rest. So that there's a...
I wouldn't say death is the rest. I would say that
at
what we
death.
Come to through death.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. At death is in when we will have that rest, because I can work for my own food. I don't need a banquet, right? If I have a good field and a good oxen and a good husband or wife, I can make my own food. I can use the field. I can use the oxen. I can use the family. And this, right? I don't need a banquet, right? That I can do. But what happens at death, I can't. So the ultimate rest, I cannot save myself. I cannot rise myself from life. I cannot enter heaven myself. None of these are things I can do myself. I need to receive like at a banquet. So many fathers have seen these parables of the banquet as death. And even the wedding garment, we've talked about this on a previous episode, the wedding garment may be the garments of light that Adam and Eve had before the fall. So when we die, the wedding banquet may be a man dying and clinging to all of the things, his money, his knowledge, his clothing, all these things that he needed here on earth, he was still clinging to them when he was supposed to take them off in favor of the garments of light. Basically, he had to be naked without shame in heaven. So he just, it actually wasn't putting on a wedding garment, it was taking everything off to reveal the core of God's care for him, rather than his own clinging and clutching at his care for himself. So there's something about this rest that God invites us to. And as I told the kids, 90% of the time, you need to be responsible. You need to work. You need to work the field. You need to work the oxen. You need to work for your wife. But we should all be anticipating the rest. We should all be saying, I need to work now, but one day, as soon as Jesus says, I will not work anymore. As soon as he says, let me take it from here, I will say, yes, please take it from here. And we adults we don't even look forward to that. That's the thing. So in this season of anticipation, in this Philip's fast, we're anticipating something. We're working on prayer, fasting, almsgiving. We're living the ascetic life, which is hard and takes effort. And the harder we work, the more we purge ourselves of these dependencies upon these things, the more able we are when Jesus says the Christ child is born. When the church says the Christ child is born, and now receive this great gift of the incarnation of our Lord, we can say, yes, I labored in the fast for this feast, just like I labored in life for this ultimate rest. But there's also times when Jesus says, tag out, surrender it, let me take it, and stop trying to grasp at this or say, I'll be happier if I do it myself. No, you won't, but the devil convinces us that we will. So even if we have to work very hard, which we all do most of our life, there's still a waiting for the time when I realize that the hard work is actually done by God, and he can do it much better than I can, and I can rest in that. So I think anyway, I did not tie these two things together until just now, but they're resting in, this is the way we do things in a beautiful way. These are our parish traditions. These are our family traditions. The resting in having that happen that way can be similar to the lack of anxiety that trying to control my own life in every aspect can be.
Yeah, I really love that reflection. Yeah, just the thought of that parable being about self-reliance. One of the possible meanings of that parable being self-reliance. And it's also just like, like you're saying, we're offered this rest ultimately through our death. If we die, I suppose the second coming could, anyways, but ultimately through death, right? But that the Lord also wants us to rest throughout the day and each day, and that he gives us these desired moments of rest. This is the Lacuna episode that we did a few weeks ago, because, it reminds me, there are so many movies about this, right? Christopher Robin. Have you seen Christopher Robin?
Oh, I need to. I've heard that
so
from many people.
Good. It's so good. Yeah. But this is the point, is the obsession with productivity and efficiency takes away from actual encounter and actual relationship. And in our society, that's a big struggle. There's also the opposite struggle of, it's like there's no in between. We don't know how to actually rest. We're either ultra productive or
lazy.
We are lazy, and are just like wasting away and binge watching something or whatever, but and not having actual encounter there either. And so, and I'm just thinking of moments that particularly spiritual daughters have shared with me, where the house is a mess and they're in the midst of trying to do something with homeschooling, and they're into, whatever. And like one of their kids just wants to like show them this thing that they made, or sit down and have a book read to them or something like that. And I've heard both the moments where the mom has not done that because the house is destroyed. And I've heard moments when the mom has been like, you know what? The house can stay destroyed for another 10 minutes and I'm going to sit down and read this book with my child. And just how beautiful those moments are. And I think that's, again, we're not speaking to like objectively what Jesus was saying through this parable, but your prayerful reflection of it. I think that's a way in which it's in our reality, in our day-to-day life of, and I've talked about this before, this has been a huge transformation in me over the past several years, is I was very much the type to like, I have to get this work done and I'm not paying attention to my sister's needs around me. Or when they do express a need and they need me to be present to them, then if I do it, it's with frustration or it's with whatever, like they're an obstacle or something. But it's learning to just set down my work and be present to the person who's in front of me, who needs me, who whatever is like, there's a rest in that too. Even in giving of ourselves, there can be this rest.
This is one of the interpretations of the story of Mary and Martha, because it's Martha, one of the interpretations, again, Martha's vocation was to serve, and she should have been doing it, right? Mary's vocation was to sit at our Lord's feet and listen to his words. Now, again, there's some interpretation in there because Mary chose a better portion, but the one of the real issues with that is that Martha wanted Mary to stop her vocation, to stop Mary's vocation and follow Martha's vocation. And so Martha should have been resting in her vocation instead of the anxiety. You're anxious about many things, instead of the anxiety of trying to force Mary to do something that was not in her vocation, by that I just mean a call or what God's will is for that moment. So yeah, there is definitely this also gets to the vocations thing you and I have talked about many times, Mother, where, what if I choose the wrong thing? What if God called me to marriage and I chose celibacy instead,
Well, now he's calling you to celibacy.
Exactly. But I do think he's calling me to celibacy. I can be the great, perfect celibate. I can do everything well, but I really do think, this is just a Father Michael thing, I really do think it will be harder because
I think that's true,
God created me.
Because this isn't the cross that necessarily the Lord shaped for your shoulders.
God created me to be celibate, and he knew that from the moment of my creation. And so my personality, my thing, my loves, my fears, my desires, all these things are kind of oriented towards celibacy, and then I choose marriage, and it's like, oh great, God's like, okay, you receive the sacrament, I give you my blessing, go be a good married man, raise good kids, do all these things, and then but it's going to be harder than if you had been called to this from the very beginning. Again, this is just it's not exactly like that. This is just the way that I process it, that we can be called to something, we can say no, and that God still says, go live it out. You now have my blessing for this. I'm going to let you do it, but it just there must be. Maybe I'm just grasping. There must be consequences, but I think the consequences from a loving God are just going to be, your own personality or your own life situation is just going to make you have to put a little more effort into it than if you had been able to rest a little bit more in just following my will. And this is not only in big V vocation. This is in every day. Jesus says, "Here's how I want you to live your day." This is my plan for your day. You're not going to do that. You're going to get in the way. You're going to overthink things. You're going to do things I don't want you to do. So therefore, the day may be a little bit more anxious or a little bit harder than if you would just kind of followed along. And again, anxiety is not only this. There's obviously many different kinds of anxiety, but if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does. I think you made all the right nuances there.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you, Mother. Any last words, parting shots at me or anything like that?
I think only no parting shots. I think last words, I'll just give Jesus' last words, not his last words from the cross, but regarding Martha and Mary, because I love a priest pointed this out in a homily he gave after my life profession, the week after my life profession. But I love that, I always remember Jesus saying Mary's chosen the better part, but I love what he says next, which is, and it shall not be taken from her. And I love that, I feel the Lord defending not just our vocation, but he defends our peace. He defends our joy. And it's these things cannot be taken from us. We can give them up. Yeah. We can choose to surrender our peace and our joy. And we often do that not as a matter of the will, right? But through our weakness, through our sin, through our stubbornness, through whatever. But just, I just really love the Lord's defensiveness of us in that. It shall not be taken from her.
Amen. There's that story in The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis where the mother wants to take the salvation away from her son. Yeah, just a kind of a haunting scene.
Yeah. Oh, that is such a good book.
Yeah. All right. Also a teaser. There is another C.S. Lewis book that we may be doing a podcast on soon. I won't say what it is or how we're going to do it, just in case that doesn't happen. But it's very exciting to me, and I think it'll be a good one, a very heartfelt, personal one. Okay. Thank you all for listening. If you think that what we've said, it would be helpful to your friends, please do share this in any way that would be helpful to you through one of the social media platforms that we're on, Facebook, Instagram, or through our website, whatgodisnot.com. We have a Goodreads page that you can also interact with. And I need to put a couple of new books on there. I've been neglecting for the past 5 years, but also neglecting recently a couple books.
For the past 5 years.
Way too hard at that. A couple books I've been reading recently that I want to put on the list. So yes, we have a Goodreads page. We have a nonprofit called Fotina. That in one of our Fotina benefits one of our Patreon benefits, is a quarterly Zoom call that we have, and Mother Natalia, one of our listeners, one of our patrons, called Fotina very woke the other day, and which he did not mean to at all. But it was kind of his reaction to his own slip up was even funnier than just the slip up. It was very
funny.
But anyways,
he was trying to say something else is woke, and he accidentally said Fotina instead of the other thing. It was very funny.
Okay, so yes, we have a nonprofit. You can go to fotina.org, photina.org. You can go to our Patreon page and see the various benefits that come from giving certain amounts, and we thank you immensely. As I just did in one of my videos, I was sharing some of the fruits and things like that Mother and I will oftentimes share. And one of the benefits is a shout out. So Mother, do you have a couple new patrons? Do we have a couple new patrons?
We do. Shout out to Casey C, no address, and Shari J, no address. That's so rare that they don't have addresses.
Maybe they listen to our podcast and they don't want the address shouted out. So
we only say the state.
There's a lot of conspiracy theorists now, Mother.
That's true. Okay.
Since the world is flat, the states are like more accessible. So,
okay.
So yes, and I think that's everything. Prayer intentions.
I forgot about that.
I will ask you to pray for Grace, who is hopefully will be my secretary very soon, and the secretary for the parish. She already works a lot in the office, and she's not feeling very well today at all. So I want to pray for her health, but also that we're able to kind of find in our budget for our parish the ability to have her in here more frequently, because she does amazing work. But she would have to, basically we were asking her to greatly limit her to quit her other job to be able to do this, but we need to actually give her money if that's the case. So we don't know if we have it, so we're figuring that out. But pray for her that she is healthy and that we're able to discern what would be an immense help, I hope.
I'll ask for prayers for my sister Heather, because this podcast comes out right after her birthday. And I would like for people to pray for her.
All right. Thank you, Mother, for the time. Thank you for your insights. Always appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Good to be with you.
You too.
Give us
a blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you, cause his face to shine upon you, have mercy on you. May our Lord allow you to rest in the vocation that you have. May he give you freedom from overthinking, freedom from scrupulosity, freedom from a legalism that may get in the way of that rest. May he allow you to not compare your vocation to others in any way that is unhelpful to your peace. May he allow you to be wise in your family traditions, in the way that you pray with your kids, in the way that you raise them. If you're a priest in your parish, and may he also grant me that same wisdom. May he allow your parish life to be truly helpful to you in the growth in virtue and the movement towards theosis. May the Lord bless you in all of this. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Love you, Mother.
Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.